All right, it is 8:05, so I am going to get started. Today is day 32 of the Rankin Technical College online AWD1000 Web Development Technologies class. All right, I'm sure we'll have people joining just like this as we get going. So, all right. Now, as it said here in the email I sent out this morning, today we were supposed to be taking the JavaScript pretest for chapters 1 to 3. I got an email from one of the students in the class yesterday saying that they were very concerned over the speed at which we were going in the class and the amount of homework that was being given in the class. All right. And I can understand that. There is a lot of work here. I've never said that there isn't. All right. Most students who seem to do the best in the class attend the lectures live and participate in one way or the other. No, not everybody can do that. I understand it. All right. For example, I have one of my afternoon students. He's a paramedic and he works more than 80 hours a week. All right. He's off this week in another state. And so I get that he couldn't sit there and, be in class and participate, etc. All right. But what I decided to do then was we're just going to build a website together as a class. You don't have to turn it in. You don't even have to do it if you don't want to. So as I said right here, we'll create it from scratch today. We'll get most of it done today. I'm not going to do any of the CSS today unless we have time, and we'll see how that goes. All right. So, as it says there, if you'd rather just watch as I key things in, if you prefer, code along with me. I am going to save this. I've already created a GitHub repo out there. It's empty right now, but I'll be, working on it today. Whatever we get done with today, I'll put it out there and then I'll update it tomorrow and put it out there again. All right. My hope is that today we can go through all the HTML and all of the JavaScript. And then tomorrow we'll do the CSS, because if we can do that, I think we can do the CSS tomorrow in an hour or so. So you'd still have most of tomorrow as a lab period. Friday will be a lab for the entire period. Monday of next week, then, what I'm going to do is give you the pretest. All right. Now, what I'll do though, I've got the pretest done already. I'll just email it out, I don't know, sometime Friday or Saturday. So if you want to look at it, fine. If you want to try it, fine. If you don't and you want to wait until Monday, fine as well. All right. But as it says there, then, you'll get the test emailed to you. I said on Monday, maybe I'll send it out earlier. We'll see. We'll go over it as we always do for the first 10 or 15 minutes of class. I'll give you an hour and a half to work on it. And then at 10 o'clock, I'll go over it. Also, because I promised you this, and I am still going to do it. We are also going to go on Monday. Hopefully there'll be time for both. And I'm going to go over the Flexbox test with you, and I'll show you what I did on mine. All right. Then on Tuesday of next week, you will take your first hands-on test. This one will be emailed to you on Tuesday. Again, I will go over it for about 15 minutes from 8:05 until 8:20 on Tuesday. The rest of the period will be lab, and it will be due by midnight on Tuesday. All right. Okay. So finally, as it says there, please remember, I will not accept, that should have said any, but that's okay. Any HTML, CSS, Flexbox, Bootstrap stuff after midnight this Sunday. All right. The first JavaScript test, again, I moved it so it'll be next Monday and it'll be due on the same day. And I've moved the date that your chapters 1 through 3 work for this class. The chapters 1 through 3 JavaScript work will be due Wednesday of next week. So I'm just going to start by doing what I probably would expect you to do, and that is I'm going to take this folder and I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to save it right to my desktop. And right now it's called the loo.zip. So it's saving it right now. Someplace in here, I've got a zip file. There it is. All right. And I'm going to move this so it's all over here by itself. And the first thing I'm going to do, you can't see the screen. Thank you for letting me know. All right. I pushed the button for share, but for some reason it didn't share. Hopefully it's sharing right now. All right. And if it's not sharing right now, please let me know. You should see my screen background, but thank you for letting me know. All right. So all I've done so far was I've taken this zip file that I sent you this morning and I've basically saved it to my desktop. Now I'm going to unzip it by doing the extract all and putting it out here. And there it is. All right. Now, when you look at this, what's in here? Well, what's in here is the images folder that we're going to actually use for this site that we're going to create. What's also in there, I didn't want you to have to type a lot. So basically the paragraphs that I put in here on the site, I put them in here. So you don't have to do a lot of typing. All right. But what I'm going to do before I even open this up in code, all right, is I'm going to come in here. I've got an images folder. I'm going to create a JavaScript folder. I'm not going to put anything in it yet. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a, oops, I don't know what's happening here, but, and just there it is. I'm going to create a, golly, come on. Index.html file. Okay, so let's do that. Index.html. All right. Plus, I might as well go in and right away create a CSS folder. Now, you know as well as I do, you've got your choice. What I just did, you could easily do inside of code, Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open with code, and right now, this is what I have in here. This new text document, I don't know what that is, but is that the one that, nope, I don't even need that, it looks like, but I've got a couple files in here. Let's put it that way. And I'm going to go into my index.txt. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. It's already filled out. I don't want this to be filled out. I want to start this brand new. So let me try it again. All right, it should now be empty. All right. So it is empty. There you see it. Okay. And I'm just starting from scratch like we've been doing. So I'm going to hit the exclamation point and tab, and we're going to get started. All right. This is going to be the home page. So I just call this thing St. Louis, and I gave the home page, it's going to say welcome. All right. When we do the about page in a few minutes, it's going to say St. Louis with a pipe sign about. Then the contact page will say St. Louis with a pipe sign and contact. All right. So what do we have here? Well, we have our doc type, our HTML, our head. We've got some meta tags in here. I'm going to put some more in. Right? Why don't we turn on word wrap? There we go. So there's the first one. I'm imagining that I'm creating this site for someone. So for the description, maybe that's a silly description, but I just put in there content equal affordable and professional web design. All right. Then I'm going to put another tag in here. It, all right. And again, would you have to do this? No. But at a minimum, what you really should consider putting in are description tags and the one I'm going to put in next, which is going to be a keywords tag. They can help with search engine optimization. In other words, when you're trying to get your website as high in Google's rankings, in Bing's rankings, in Yahoo's rankings as possible, it can help. All right. So that's it for meta tags in here. And now I've got my title. And under my title, I'm going to put my link to my CSS file. All right. So it'll be under CSS. There's nothing there right now, but I'm going to put in here styles. Good stop. I'm also going to put the link to my JavaScript file right here. There's going to be a couple of them. One is going to be called datetime.js. And don't worry about what's in there or anything. It'll be fine. And I'm going to type defer. And I've got that. Now that is everything. That is everything that is in my head section. I'm not going to run the program now. It wouldn't make any sense. There's nothing in the body. All right. But that's what I've got so far. All right. Okay. So going into the body, the first thing I did was I set up my header section. Okay. And it's going to be pretty simple. And I put everything that's in there inside of a div. And I gave it a class of container. In fact, took almost everything that we'll be doing today and put it inside of a class of container so that later in my CSS, I'm going to be able to take the container class and format it in the way I see fit to format it. All right. Whoops. Now, as you can see, and I don't know how I did that, but I did. Now I've got another div in here that I called branding. All right. What we're going to do in here is we're going to say, we are St. Louis, and the word R, A-R-E, is going to be highlighted in a different color. Don't worry about how we do that. We're going to do it later. But to do that, I'm going to make an H1 here, and I'm going to say we, and then for R, I'm going to put that into its own class. I'm going to say span class equal highlight R St. Louis. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, don't let it worry you, because all we're saying is this word is going to be formatted using a class called highlight, which we will create when we do our CSS. All right. And that's the only thing that you have to really worry about, think about, whatever for right now. Okay. All right. Then we're going to put in our navigation section. Oops, if we spell it right. All right. And again, it's going to be an unordered list, but it's going to be simple. It's only going to have 3 things in it. All right. There's the first one. And that is it for our navigation section. Now, you know this already. There's been absolutely no CSS that's been put in here yet. So it's going to look pretty ugly. But if I do come in here and do a save all, and I bring this thing up right now in live server, that's what it looks like. Like I said, not much, but we haven't done anything in here as far as formatting. Also, just so you know, this page works. We can keep going here, but we didn't make an about page yet. We didn't make a contact page yet. So we're going to get that error. Cannot get /about, cannot get /contact, which is pretty much, I think at least, what we'd expect to have happening right now. All right. So what we want to have, and let me show you the way that the site, I probably have shown you this before, but let me show you the way the site is supposed to look. All right. And I got to come in here and make one change to do that. So when we get all done with it, ideally at least, this is what this site will look like. So there's our homepage. All right, not a lot in there, etc., but you can see it. There's our about page, and here will be our contact page. All right, that's what I want to do over the next 2 days. Now you'll notice here where it says we are St. Louis, you can see the R is a different color. That's what I just showed you. So far we've done this and we've done this. We put in no formatting, but that's what we've done so far. All right, you can see what ours looks like. Also, if you notice here, whatever page is the current page has that same kind of yellowish coloring that the word R does. All right, so we're on the home page now. So the next thing that we're going to do, and it's going to be pretty simple, is going to be to do our showcase, which is going to be right here. Not this thing in the dark blue, but this right here. Now, it's not going to show because the image we're going to add is a background image in the bit. So again, what's going to actually happen when we get done before we put any styling in this is I just want to show you what it's going to look like because it's pretty doggone ugly. All right, so it's going to look like this. This is the home page. Here's the about page. That isn't real bad, but it's bad enough. And there's the contact page. So that's what we're going to be working with. And again, we'll just keep working on it until we get it looking the way we want it to look. All right, that's the idea. Okay. So I've come in here and notice again, we've got this header. Everything is in there. I'm trying to be HTML5 compliant. All right, now I can come in here. I didn't do this in my copy, but I can make a main in here. All right, and everything that I create is going to be inside of a section. So the first section that I'm going to create is going to be my showcase. And again, sometimes it's called showcase, sometimes it's called hero. You really could call it literally anything you wanted, but it's the thing basically that comes right underneath your brand, which for us is going to say we are St. Louis, and your navigation. All right. So I'm going to again put this into a container, and maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. There is a shortcut rather than me saying div ID equal container, which is totally fine to say. All right, to type it in like this. There is a shortcut where I can say # container and hit tab. Okay, and it does the same thing. All right, there are so many shortcuts for Emmett. All right, Brad Traversy has a really good, it's probably about a half an hour long thing on Emmett shortcuts. And there's all sorts of other ones out there. You can find Emmett cheat sheets as well. All right, so in my I've got here ID of showcase, and here I've got a div with an ID of container. This is going to be real simple. I'm going to put an H1 in here, and it's going to say, welcome to St. Louis. And underneath that, we're going to have a paragraph. Now, I gave you all the text, but I'm going to type in at least some of it anyway. This is pretty short. All right. That literally is everything that I want to put in there. So again, not a whole heck of a lot. And you'll see if I save it. And again, if I go over and take a look at it, doesn't look like much. All right. And that's okay. So what we've done so far on our actual copy of this, let me keep the right copy of it up so that you can see as we're going along in here. So what we've done in here so far is we've set up this and we've set up this. All right. So this was the header. This was the first section that I called showcase. We're going to make another section right now that's called newsletter. That's right here. It really doesn't go anywhere. All right. And then we're going to make another section down here that we're going to call boxes. And then we're going to have our footer. And that's going to be it for this page. And like I said, it won't look very good, but that's okay. We will go back and we will fix it up. All right. So, like I said, the next section that's in here is going to be called newsletter. And again, I want another div. And I don't know why I said ID equal container up there. That should have been class because I'm using the container class all over the place. All right, sorry about that. Make yours a class. So what's the shortcut for that? Dot container and hit tab. Div class equal container. All right, so far, like I said, we have made our header, we have made our showcase, and now we're doing our newsletter. And again, you can see how simplistic this is. Okay. And believe it or not, this little thing that you see right here, this is created as a form. All right, we just typed in subscribe to our newsletter. That's this. And now we're going to make a simple form that doesn't have much in it. So good, it won't take long to do. And believe it or not, that's everything for our newsletter. So let's save that. And let's again bring it up in live server. So that's what we just created right here. Okay, like I said, I understand now it doesn't look like much at all. Not only that, now what we're going to do is we're going to put in those 3 boxes. So in other words, what we want to put in here next are these 3 things. All right. Now, the only reason I'm telling you that is if you take a look inside of the images folder, you'll notice that each one of these images is of a very different size. Okay, so let me open the images folder and you'll notice here's the St. Louis Cardinal one, and it is 840 by 859. We've got the St. Louis Blues one, which is 200 by 200, so it's a square basically. Then we've got the St. Louis, City FC, and that's 2419 by 2419. So this one is about 12 times the size of this one. All right, but they're all going to look okay when we end up doing some formatting on them later. All right, okay. So again, we've done our showcase. After our header, we did our showcase and we did our newsletter. So it's time for another section here. And I already mentioned it, but that section is going to be called boxes. When we get to the actual text for the St. Louis Cardinals and for the St. Louis Blues, etc., I'm going to copy that. So you don't have to sit there and watch me key stuff in. It's kind of stupid to do that. So again, we're going to have a section, and inside of that section, we're going to have a div, and inside of that div, we're going to have another div. Actually, we'll have 3 of them. You'll notice that this ID that's in here for the section is called boxes, and this div is going to be called box. We have we'll have 3 of type box inside of our boxes. All right. All right, that will go to the actual St. Louis Cardinals homepage. All right, and I'm also going to put in here a target equals underscore blank. All right, and now inside of here, we'll have our image, and that'll be that logo that you saw previously. Wait, oops, I should say source, not SCR. And when I look in here, there's logo cards. Okay. And because we're good programmers, we'll put an alt tag in here too. Okay, so that's that image. And then we're going to have an H3 that says St. Louis Cardinals. And then we'll have a paragraph. And again, rather than you watching me type, I'm going to go back to here, and I'm hoping I still have that in here. So let's see. Looks like I lost it, but I'll get it back right away. Just going to bring this up in another editor. So I've already got this. I've done that showcase, etc. Here's the Cardinals text. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to paste it right into my site. Just like that. Okay, and I'll move this over. All right, so that's everything for the cardinals. Now, just so you know, the other two are going to be set up in a similar manner. So I've got my choice. I could sit there and grab everything that's in here, everything in between these divs, and I could copy it to the clipboard and put it in there 2 more times. Some people are able to do that and to do a very good job, not just of doing that, but of doing that and then knowing exactly what they should change. All right. I'm not going to do it that way. In other words, okay, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just create another one on my own. So this will be the second one. All right. And there's logo blues. And again, another H3 tag in here. And that one will literally say St. Louis Blues. And underneath that, another paragraph tag. And again, I'm going to grab that. So here's the blues text. And there that is. So I've got two of them in now. So let's make the last one, which will be again the St. Louis Fight Club soccer team. And now I want to find the Fight Club. And again, another H3. Followed by another pair, just the same way we did it before. And again, I'm going to grab that text. All right. So now the only thing that is left on this page is my footer. All right. And when I get done with this page, when I get done with it, I'm going to take it and copy it to my about page and then just rip out everything I don't need. And then I'll do the same thing with the contact page. So you can see in here again. All right. We got our meta tags and everything else that goes into our regular head section. Then in the body, we put in our header. Then in our main, we put in a showcase section, followed by a newsletter section, followed by a boxes section. All right. So now we're up to the footer. And actually the footer technically, some people say the footer is part of main, some people say it's not, but I'm going to put it down here anyway. It's going to be simple. I'm going to put a paragraph in here. And it's, it's going to have something like, if you want to claim this as your own and make changes to it, put in your name here, copyright, ampersand, copy, 2023. Again, you should always say all rights reserved. All right. So that'll be the first thing. And I can put in another paragraph if I want, but I just put a line break here, a BR tag. Okay, so I could keep typing on here. Now, this is going to involve some JavaScript, which we haven't gone over yet. So right now it's only going to say this. I'm going to put in here current date and time. All right, span ID equal date time. You don't have to worry about what that means, other than when we go over the JavaScript for this, ideally what's going to happen is, show it to you from showing you the working copy here. Down on the bottom, you may or may not be able to see it, but it's got a working clock. All right, and you can see it says current date and time, Wednesday, October 11th, 2023, 8:42:10 a.m. All right, so that's what we're going to be shooting for. So that is everything in about 115, 120 lines that's going to be on our homepage. And again, right now, it's not going to look very good. But everything is in there. That's good. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this entire file that we have right here. Let me get rid of this thing that's empty here in a moment. Just going to delete it. All right. I'm going to take this index and I'm going to right mouse click on it, choose copy, and then put it right underneath here with a paste and change the name right away to about.html. All right, so now I have two pages that right now look identical to one another. All right, so all this stuff is good, really up until about, I don't know, the first 12 lines. This is fine. That's going to be the same with all three pages. All right. Some people will tell you that if you use meta tags like this with a description and an author and a keywords, that you should only put them on the home page. Some other people say put them on every page. In the end, it probably doesn't matter very much. All right, going down to line 13 then, this is going to be my about page. All right, and if you notice here, this date time thing that we have not written yet, that's that date time that's going to be down in the footer. All right. Okay. So our header can stay the same except for one, a couple. All right. So we got this, we are St. Louis. That's all fine. But when you look in here, the current class is no longer, it is no longer home. The current class is now our about page. So I'm going to grab all this, cut it, and repaste it in right there. So really, when you look at this in our entire head section here, all right, from our head all the way down to our header, the only thing we changed was we took, this was our current page and we made this our current page. Not only that, when we get to the last page, all right, which is going to be our contact page, it'll be the same thing. All right. So we are in this about thing. And I believe that if we look at the final product here, and we go to the second page, about, notice it starts with the same newsletter. So I'm going to copy that in. All right. Well, there's no sense in doing it again. So I'm going to copy it in. It's already there from what we did previously. So I'm down here. So I'm in main. I no longer need this showcase. The showcase was for the home page, but I do want to keep that newsletter. All right. So I'm going to keep the newsletter, and everything else that's in here. All right. Everything else that's in here on this page, this boxes stuff, I don't need any of this. So I'm going to get rid of it all the way down to, but not including the footer. All right. So that skinnied it up quite a bit. All right. I should still have that form in here. That's right here. All right. Now, almost all the rest of what's in here is going to be basically in a section that I actually called main, and it's going to just be a bunch of paragraphs. So that, those paragraphs, we're going to again copy in just a moment. All right. So, like I said, so as of right now, then, there's not a whole heck of a lot in here either. Okay. So I've got my main, I've got my newsletter. If I save this, and if I bring this page up in Live Server, that's what this looks like. All right, not real much different from our previous page, except we don't have the logos and all the other junk in there. All right, so after we come in and we do the subscribe to our newsletter, as I said, we're going to make another section in here. And I gave it an ID of main, probably not the greatest name because we've already got a main here, but I'm just going to leave it. All right. Again, I'm going to put a div with a class of container. And inside of here, I'm going to put an article tag. And in this article tag, I'm going to have a lot of stuff. But the good news is I'm just going to copy it in. So I'm going to put an H1 tag in here that says about St. Louis. All right. Then after that, I'm going to put in four different paragraphs. And I've given those to you already. All right. They are in here. So there's paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4. I think that's all 4. 3, 4. Looks like it. All right. So I'm just going to paste those in. Okay. That's all my article stuff. Now let's look. It looks down here. It's giving me an error. So we'll figure that error out right away. So let's look up here. So article ID equals this. Fine. About, there's paragraph 1, start and end. Paragraph 2, start and end. Paragraph 3, start and end. And paragraph 4, there's no end there. So as soon as we put in that ending paragraph tag, we should be good. Okay, so that added all of that. So in other words, what I just did from our working version is I just put in all of right there. Okay. And again, I didn't think you should have to watch me put that in. I thought that was kind of silly. All right. Now, I do want to mention something. We're going to do this next. We're going to do this right now. But I want to mention one thing before we do. I created this thing from scratch. If it works and you like it, fine. And if you don't like it, fine. If there's anything to blame or if something doesn't work, it's 100% on me. But when I did this, the idea was I would do this, and then later on I would go back to it and I would redo it with Flexbox. And then I would go back again and redo it with Bootstrap. I never did. So right now there's going to be some floats in here. It's going to look more old school. All right. So the pre chapter 9, when we got the Flexbox, that's kind of what it's going to look like. All right. Okay. So then jumping back into here, after this article, I put an aside in because that thing is on the side. So I put it in a side and I gave it an ID called sidebar. That's a very popular name when you create a sidebar, is to call it sidebar, but by no means would you have had to do that. All right, I'm going to get done with this, and then when I do, we'll take a break. Okay. Now I put in a class here that's called Dark2, and don't worry what that is. It's a CSS class I made. We'll talk about it later. I originally had a Dark1 and a Dark2, and I got rid of the Dark1, but I just kept the name in there, Dark2. All right, so what's going to be in here then? You already saw this, but when you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 places to eat. This is going to be in an unordered list. Each list item then is going to have in it, as you can see, all right, we already have the what to eat in the loo, but these are going to be our list items. So each list item is just going to have some text. I didn't put it in a paragraph or anything. I just put it put it out there. Then it's going to have an image, which is actually clickable, and it'll go to that site. So it'll go to the site for Mama's on the Hill, etc. All right. And then we'll have the actual image. So we're going to make 4 of those. All right. And again, when we get done with that, then we'll take a break. And again, like I said, this could be formatted so much better. I didn't put like an address tag in here. You could do that. You could use some um, margin and padding as opposed to a BR tag. I was kind of sloppy. I just did this a couple summers ago, to be honest with you, when I was screwing around one morning. So there's the first one. And again, if we do take a look at it, you're going to see how bad it's going to look. So there's that. Okay. And like I said, when we get done, we'll have 3 additional ones like that. So that's our first LI. And I'm looking here. Yep. Okay, so now we'll put in our second. Okay. All right, then our next one. And then finally, the last one. And I believe that's everything for that page. So let me save it all. Let me look at it again. It looks pretty pathetic right now. But we have our toasted ravioli, we have our frozen custard, we have our Emo's pizza, and we have our St. Louis style ribs. All right, according to what I see on the screen, it's looks like it's just about, well, it's about almost 9:02. So let's take till 9:12. When we come back, I'm going to first build the contact page. After we build the contact page, I'm going to add some of the JavaScript because it's fairly simplistic and I want to go over that with you. So please, let's come back at 9:12. Thank you. All right, it is 9:12, so I'm going to continue on. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my About page and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it and I'm going to rename it to contact.html. All right, so I now have all three of my pages. And in here, just like before, the only thing I have to change in the first 13 lines is to make that contact. All right. And the only thing I have to change in my header section is, again, to make the contact my current page. All right. So that gets us all the way down to the newsletter. And this page, again, starts with a newsletter. All right. So I'm going to leave that in there just as it is. Okay. And there's actually going to be a lot of similarity on purpose between the way this was done and the way the previous page was done. All right. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to remove all these paragraphs that are in here. So I just have the article, and rather than about St. Louis, this is going to say number guessing game. And after that, we're going to have a paragraph. I could copy it in, but it's not that long. So in fact, you know what? I will copy it in. I think I've got it here. I don't. That's all right. Yeah, I put some BR tags in here, which is a crummy way to do that, but okay. So I just want you to see something before we go on here, and that is this. If I go back to the working page here, we're now on the last page. All right. And this is what I just typed in, that right there. All right. Now, the way we're going to set this up is this is actually going to be a form. But what's going to happen is it's going to end up calling a JavaScript file. All right, so we're going to do that first. Then as the aside, we're going to make this right here, which is the form. Okay, so again, we go back and take a look at that. junk in there. I got to remove that. But we've got this enter a guess and submit guess. And we're going to remove everything that's below that right now. I'm going to keep the sidebar in there, but I'm going to remove this unordered list and everything that's in there. All right, that should clean that up quite a bit. There we go. All right, well, I got to finish that. And it's what to eat, not wheat to eat, but we'll fix all that in just a minute. Speaking of which, I should go back and change that to what to eat. There we go. All right. Now, what we're going to get in here, just so you know, I'm almost done with this article. I'm almost done with this. All right, but I'm going to put a couple more things in here. And you won't see them when the game runs, because this is going to say basically, it's going to have information about the game. Was your guess too high or too low? How many guesses did it take you, etc. So I put another div in here. In fact, I put it underneath this one. All right, so I put another div here with a class equal to result paras. This is just going to be the paragraphs that are going to have the result of what happened. And if you notice, it's an empty paragraph, so it's not going to show anything. All right, so that's that. And like I said, since they're just empty, nothing is going to show. It may take up some space on the screen. And it's not even doing that. So it's not showing anything. That's going to be literally right in here. All right, let me close several of these. All right. And now we've got our aside. This is going to have the form in it. All right, and this is going to be the form again that we said need more info, and it'll have first name, last name, address, etc. in it. So it'll be pretty much a conventional type of form. It'll again be in a sidebar, and again, I gave it a class of dark 2. All right. So many of these are going to be the same. So I am going to do some copy and pasting here. Let me grab this one. And right below the first name, we're going to have last name. All right, and right below last name, we're going to have address. All right, and right below address, we're going to have city. Let's just quickly save this and take a look and see what that looks like right now. Okay, so first name, last name, address, city, that's fine. And then next, we're going to have the state. And again, I gave you that text that's in there for that right here. Because I didn't want you to have to type in all 50 of those states. It'd be, again, a waste of your time. City. And after the city, state. All right, that saved, like I said, a lot of typing. And then we have an email and a message. So they're both gonna be set up pretty much like this one. So I'm gonna come down to the bottom here and put that in here. So this will be email. And finally, the message. Now, with the message, it's going to be different because that's going to be a text area. All right. So I'll do that one by hand. And then finally, we'll have a submit button. And I put on there send. All right. That ends our form. That ends our div and our aside and our other div and our section and our main. All right. So that should be everything. All right. Take a quick look at it. All right. And again, we should now be able to iterate between pages. And you can see we can. Okay. So we have done all of our HTML. Now, you know this as well as I do, because we've done this in different ways. What some developers like to do is they like to literally write all their HTML, then write their CSS, then write their JavaScript, and then any combination thereof. Some people like to do part of a page and then quickly format it with CSS, do more of the page and format it again, etc. This is just the way I'm doing this one. All right. Now, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to explain this as we go through it, but that said, this may not make a boatload of sense as we go over it right now. And that is, I'm going into JS here, and in my JS, I'm going to put in a new file. And this new file is going to be called date_time.js. And the idea behind this file, it's not a long file. It's only about 25 or 30 lines long. All right. it's going to allow us to, on the bottom of the screen in our footer section, it's going to allow us to put in, all right, the current date and the current time. All right, right now there's just a placeholder that says current date and time. Now I stole this, so I always try to give credit where credit is due. So if you want to see exactly what I did, and I'm even going to go out there right now to see if it still is an active URL. I would think it is, but you just never know. Says internal server error. Well, I'll have to check on it then. I don't think it's flexible. I thought it was flexible. No, that's not it either. All right, I'll try to remember to look at that. And if the URL has been changed, to let you know what that is. Okay. All right, but let's write the JavaScript for this. And I will go over it. In fact, I'll even try to remember to comment it as I'm putting things in here. So we're going to write one routine, one function in here that's called current time. So everything we do is going to be within this function. When we get done at the bottom, we're going to call the function by saying current time. So that will call or invoke that function. I still forgot to go in and turn that off. So when I save, my semicolons are going to be removed. All right. I'll remember to do that today. Okay, so let's write this. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a bunch of different variables. So give me a second. There's like 5 or 6. All right. And let me put those in and then we'll explain what each one is. All right. So looking at these, this is going to create what's called a new date object. All right. It's of type date right there, and it's going to be called date. So just as I'm a human object, or I like to think I am, and I'm Jeff, so it would be something like let Jeff equal new person, that kind of an idea. If that doesn't make sense, don't really let it worry you. The only reason we did that is now that we've got a date, we're able to grab the hours and the minutes and the seconds from there. All right, we're not worried right now yet. We're not going to talk about the actual date itself. This is just basically grabbing us the time. Notice it's called current time. And this thing that's down here, this is going to change because if the current time is greater than 12, all right, then it's going to be PM. All right, or greater, I guess, yeah, it'd be greater than 12. And we'll do a little bit of math in there, but it's so simple a math, I don't think it's going to bother anybody. All right. So like I said, put a comments in here. This is called create, and it's really typically referred to as instantiate. Instantiate, I think that's right. New date object. That's what that's doing right there. This grabbing the current hour. This is grabbing the current minute, and this is grabbing the current second. Okay. And this session, like I said, is going to be either AM or PM. And when I say it's grabbing this stuff, it's grabbing it from the right-hand bottom of my screen. In other words, from there, it's grabbing the time that's on my computer right now. All right. So in other words, if I had a different time zone or something, it would be showing that. All right. So we've got all that stuff. Now, what we want to do when it does this, it's going to give us the time in military time. So in other words, right now it is 9:33, all right, which would give us 21:33 if it was 9:33 p.m. So we're going to just make a check in here. You say, what are you talking about? Let me write it and I'll explain it. We're going to say if the hour is equal to 0, all right, meaning it's the midnight hour, then we're going to say reset that hour to 12. All right, because if it's midnight, we want to say it's 12, but we'll say AM. All right. If the hour is greater than 12, now we could have put that in there as an else, but I'm not going to. All right, I'm putting in there as two different checks. So if it's greater than 12, then the hour is equal to the hour minus 12. And it's PM. All right, and hopefully at least, again, that's not too much math for people. All right, that you can look at that and it makes sense to you. All right, now maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But again, all we're doing is we're creating a new data object. We're grabbing the hours from that data object. We're grabbing the minutes from that data object. We're grabbing the seconds from that data object. We're assuming it's AM. And then we make some checks. So if it is the midnight hour, change hour from 00 to 12. All right. And here, if it is greater than 12 p.m., subtract 12 from current time and change the session to PM. All right, I'm trying to put some comments in here so you can see what's going on. All right. Now, what we want to do, we don't have to do this, but it'd be kind of nice. Let's assume right now, I'm just going to pretend. So I'm going to type in something here. I'm going to remove it right away. But let's assume the time right now is 9 o'clock a.m. All right, so we're just making that assumption. It's 9 o'clock, a.m. Like I said, I'm just assuming that. Now, I don't want that to print out like 9, 0, 0. That looks pretty bad. So I want this to print out as 9, 0, 0, 0, 0, meaning it's 9 o'clock, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. And we can even do the same thing with the hour. We can put a 0 at the beginning there too. So that's what we're going to do. Now, there's two ways to write this, and I want to show you both of them. Not to confuse you, but they're both used a lot. So I'm going to show you, what we could do. So we can come in here and say, if our hours are less than 10, all right, if they're less than 10, meaning the hour is 0 through 9, if it's one of those, all right, Then basically what we want to do is we want to append at the beginning a 0. All right. So if that's the case, then I want to say HH equals a 0 plus the hour and then a colon like that. Now, I don't expect that to make a whole boatload of sense to you. All right. But what that's going to do right here is it's going to put a 0 in there, then our hour. So if it's like 6, it'll now be 06. All right. And then after that, we will put in a colon. So that'll be plus and then a colon. Like that. I don't even think we need this the way I'm doing it. So again, if it's 9 o'clock, like it is now, this will change 9 to 09. All right. Now that's one way you can do it. I'm not going to do it that way. So I'm going to take this whole thing here and I'm going to comment it out. And I'm going to show you a JavaScript operator, which probably right now won't make a lot of sense. But when we look at it, it might make total sense to you. All right. So I'm going to write this. So HH equal and I'm going to copy this because we're going to do the same thing for the minutes and for the seconds. The only thing that will change is this will be minutes. And this will be seconds. Now this probably looks, probably looks really weird to you. I'd really imagine that it would, but it's actually not that hard. What it's saying is, if the hour is less than 10, if it is less than 10, you do what comes after the question mark. So what we want to do is, if the hour is less than 10, we want to come in and we want to put a 0 in followed by our hour. So 01, 02, 03, etc. If it's not less than 10, meaning it's 10 or above, we don't want to put a 0 in there. So we just put in what comes after the colon. We just put in the hour. And then we do the same thing for the minute and for the second. So again, just imagine for a second, if you would, no pun intended. Let's imagine that the time is 9:09, and let's just say with 9 seconds, 9 seconds AM. All right. Doing this is going to make sure it prints like this. Now, if we didn't do that and append that leading 0, it would look like this. And I don't know about you, but I'd find that very confusing. So that's all we're doing here, is we're just saying, if necessary, and I think it's not even called append, I think it's prepend. So if necessary, prepend a leading 0 at the beginning of hours and or minutes and or seconds. Okay, that's all we're doing right there. Now we're almost done. We got about 4 or 5 more lines to write. Okay. And like I said, I've tried to come in here and put comments throughout so you can hopefully have an idea of what we're doing here. All right. So let time, could be a const, but that's okay. Let time equal the hour plus a colon plus the minutes plus another colon plus seconds plus a blank space plus the session. So for instance, right now it is 9:42. So that is going to show 09:42, and let's say it's 38 seconds. 38. So it'd be 09:42 38 space. And if session is still AM, it'll say AM. And if session is PM, it'll say PM. All right. Now that's setting everything up. That's not printing it out yet. So I'm letting this, I just called it STR for string, and it doesn't matter. And again, I don't expect that that line I just put in here probably makes a boatload of sense to you. But what it's saying is, remember that date object that we created way up here? And we're only been working with right now the time part of it, but it also holds the date. So show us the date. All right, and it's not to string, it's to date string, I believe. Show us the date followed by a space, followed by the time that we just set right there. All right, now that's all fine and dandy, but still, that's created a couple variables, but we have not printed them out yet. All right, what does that mean? Well, if you remember, if I go back into here, I can grab any one of these files, but I'll grab this one. Down on the bottom, down on the very bottom, we created this span right here that we called date time. That's where we want to now put in our date and our time. That's what we want to have go there. All right. So basically, when you think about it, what does it have? It's got an ID named date time. All right. Now you remember, or hopefully you remember, we talked about a shortcut where you can use a $sign. All right. Instead of saying document.get element by ID. And we could use that $sign, but you know what? We only have one document.get element by ID in here. So I'm going to literally type it. So document.get element by ID. And notice the capitalization, because a lot of people like to make that a capital D. If you do, it won't work. All right. So I'm telling it to find that date time, that ID of date time, and then I'm telling it to set the text in there equal to, let me close this. I'm telling it to set the text in that equal to this string right here. So it should set it equal to the date and the time. Now, I'm not done yet. There's one more line to type in, but I'm going to save it and I'm going to go back to my index and open it. And you'll notice now at the very bottom, well, I guess it still isn't showing. I thought it would, but it's not, and it will soon. All right, but that's where it's going to be. Now, the problem is the way it's written right now is it'll give you the current time, but we have to tell it to advance every second because now it's 9:46 and 13 seconds. Now it's 9:46 and 14 seconds, etc. So we have to tell it to do that. So again, in here, set the time and the session. Again, AM or PM. All right. And in here, bring in the date. And put the time after it. All right. Here, what we're basically telling it what we want to do is place the date and time in the span, which is in the footer. All right. And one more thing is have the seconds and minutes and hours increment as necessary. So in other words, every second, the seconds are going to increment. Every minute, the minutes should increment. And every hour, the hours should increment. All right. And how do we do that? Well, we basically call a routine that'll do it for us. All right. And again, is it that important that you understand what this means? No. It'll make more sense to you, I believe, later on in the semester. But right now, I'd be surprised if for most people, it made a lot of sense. Okay. But I'm going to literally even put all of it on one line. I don't have to do that, but I'm going to. What that's saying is, all right, what this is saying is, I want you to call this current time function every second. So give me the time, give me the time, give me the time, give me the time. So it should be updating the seconds. All right. Now, why it's not showing right now, I'm not positive. I'm not worried about it because we will get it. All right. But it looked like, at least when we put it in here, it looked like it wasn't showing. Doesn't make me happy, but like I said, I believe we'll get it hopefully by the end of class, but we'll see. All right. So that should be coming in right here. All right. So what we've done then so far is we have come in, we have created our index.html, our about.html, our contact.html, and now we just did a datetime.html. All right, that is date time. So one thing I wanted to check, that file, that date time, I want that to show on all pages, because I want in my footer on every page. All right, on every page, I want that to show. Now, not right this second, but what we will do in here, it'll either be tomorrow morning or later today, we'll see. But we're going to write the code for that game. It's a guessing game. You guess a number between 1 and 100. All right. The reason I'm telling you that is that guessing game is on our contact page. The guessing game is not on the home page or the about page. So I'm not going to include that script tag. There'll be another one that we'll put in here. All right, just for this page. All right, so let's come in and look at our CSS next. All right, and what did we say here? We said it's called styles.css. So inside of the CSS file here, I'm going to add a new file, and I'm going to call it styles.css. And there it is. It's empty. Now, again, you don't have to do this, but just because I like to, I'm going to come in here and say body, color, background color, sorry. Background color, red. I just want to make sure that my CSS is going to communicate with my pages. So I'm going to bring up my home page. And you'll see it's red. That's good. My about page, yep, that's red. My contacts page, and that's red. All right, so that's good. I know that there is a communication that is now taking place between my CSS file and my HTML files. Good, that's a good start. All right, so I'm going to, for now at least, I'm going to close all this stuff and just keep this open. And I'm going to start working with this file. And I'm going to make some changes, and then I'm going to go back to the page, then make some more changes and go back to the page. Now in here, there's a few lines. There's about 250 lines I got to type in here, and that's okay. All right. but I'm going to just start at the beginning. So body, whoops, body. And I'm going to set the font. Now, what we've done in the past is we've come in and we've said font size, and then we've said font family, etc. So in the past, we've done this. Font size, and for example, 1.5 rem. Font family, and we have put in something like, I don't know, Arial, Helvetica, Sans Serif, like this. All right. And that's totally fine. I can do it like that, but there is a shortcut if you care. So I'm going to take these two lines and I'm going to comment them both out so I can show you the shortcut. And that is to say font and then say 1 rem slash 1.5. Don't worry. And then the type. So Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. So that's another way of writing the same thing. If that confuses you, so this, all right, basically we're setting it right there for the font size, and here we're setting the font family. If you say, I don't like that, I don't get that, then don't do it. Just come back and do it like this. It's totally fine to do it that way. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way. All right. Some people look for shortcuts in virtually everything they do. Some people could care less. All right. And let's do a quick little reset here by just saying padding 0, margin 0, and I'm going to set a background color. And I'm going to set it to pound F4, F4, F4. Okay. So when you notice, it's kind of a little sort of an off-white, off-gray, whatever you want to call it. So that's all we've done so far. So let me do a file, save all, and let's just look at just the home page now. All right. So you can see we haven't changed much. All right. But there's no margin or padding in here. So you can see how everything is pushed over. Now you might say, well, there's still some stuff on the top. That's stuff that the browser puts in. All right. We could have a better reset than what we have. All right. But this is just, I wrote it just to keep it very simplistic. So that's our style for the body. Okay. And really all this stuff that we're doing here so far is, whoops, get enter there. This is going to all be global. So in other words, everything that I put in for the body, unless I override it someplace, it's going to be for the entire document. All right. Well, what's another thing that I did in here? If you remember, I put a class of container. So dot container. All right. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to set the width to 80%. So it's going to take up 80% of the screen width. The margin, I'm just going to say auto. It's going to try to center it. And any overflow, we probably won't have any, but if we do, just hide it. All right. Now, I'm not going to save this yet, but if you look at this, you can see, kind of get in your mind what it looks like. All right. And then I'm going to do a file, save all, and then I'm going to come back to it. Now, you might tell it's been pushed over. All right. It's only taking up 80% of the width. So there's 20% here and 20% over there. All right. Now, again, that's not a big thing. I'm just trying to show you as I'm going through this, what's happening. So next, I'm going to come in and I'm going to say my unordered list, my UL. And all I'm going to do there is say margin 0 and padding 0. And the reason I'm saying that is later, I'll be able to go back and reset them if necessary, any way I want. So I'm removing any margin and I'm removing any pattern, or padding rather. All right. Now I'm going to keep going here. If you remember, I had a class I've used in several places that I call button 1. All right. And I'm going to give it a height. I'm going to give it a background color. All right. And you might say, well, geez, how'd you come up with that? Believe it or not, I Googled what is the hex code for St. Louis Cardinal Red. And that's what it came back with. I don't want there to be any border around the button. I'll put in some padding. Now I can do this in different ways. You know that, but I'm going to do a padding left, 1.25 rem, and a padding right. There's other ways that we can do that. We've learned about those. All right, the color on the button is going to be white, the text color, and I want to make sure that the cursor is set to a pointer. All right, which literally should do that. All right, so that's what I've done in here. So let's save that. And let's go back again. And notice now where our buttons are. You can see this. They're now St. Louis Cardinal Red with white text. Now, if you don't like that, because it's a very squared off look, we could also say border radius and just put in a radius of maybe 5 pixels. All right. And that's going to give it a little bit of a rounded effect. See that? If you like that better. If you liked it better square, you'd leave it square. It's no biggie one way or the other. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to put in here then, the next thing is you might remember that for those asides, I gave them both a class called Dark2. Again, I originally had a dark, but I removed it. But I'm just keeping this the way it is. So I'm going to put in some padding. I'm going to give it a background color. All right, which is it's either a dark blue or a light black. Again, we'll make the text color white. Give it a little bit of margin top and margin bottom. So I can do this. Remember, I can do it like this. I can say margin top, 0.625 rem, like that. And then I can do a margin bottom, which is going to be the same thing, 0.625 rem. And there are shortcuts. I could say 0.625 rem, 0, 0.625 rem, 0. I'll just leave it the way it is. All right, I'm not going to save that yet. But again, this is for those asides. So you'll remember if you look with those asides, if I go to the About page, this is one of the asides right here. And if I go to the Contact page, oh, there it is there. This is the aside. We haven't moved it yet. But notice that button is already squared off again too. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here and I'm going to save this. Now, when you look at this again, notice how dark it is. All right. We have added some stuff to it. All right. And that pretty much is it as far as my global stuff. So I've now set up my global stuff. And you'll also notice if I go back to my About, this is going to be blue also. And there you go. All right. So I'm starting to put a little style and substance into this. All right. So that's the end of my global stuff. So next I want to do all of my header. All right. And I'll start with the header itself. The header is the same on all 3 pages. And for the background, whoops, Don't know what I did there or why I did that, but I did. So for the background color, again, I'm going to make it that cardinal red, which was up here. And I will make the text color white. Let's give it some top padding. And we'll give it a minimum height. All right. And we'll give it a bottom border. And we'll use that same color here. And we'll make it 3 pixels and solid. Now, we're not done yet. We are not done yet. But what I want to show you is I just saved it. And now you can see what's happened. All right. So again, it's already, I think at least, starting to look a little bit better. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree. But let's just keep adding stuff. Now, in my header, for my anchors, or in other words, for my links, I'm going to again make them white. I'm going to do a text decoration none, so that'll remove the underline. I'm going to do a text transform to uppercase. So that means no matter what, my buttons are always going to show an uppercase text. And I'm going to give them a font size of 1 rem. All right, so this is what I've done. So again, file, save all, come back and take a look. And you can see, again, it sure as heck isn't perfect, but it's getting, I think, better than it was. There's about a half dozen more things we want to do here. So let's just keep going rather. And you'll notice again, these are now uppercase. All right. And these things themselves, these are our list elements. All right. So next, let's do header, li, and we're going to float them to the left. Display inline, which means that all should then be on the same line, and add some padding. Now, for a second, this is now going to look a little funky. All right, we don't want it over there. We want this over here, and we want these over here. That's what we're going to do next. All right. That header was given an ID of branding. So we're going to tell it to float left. All right. And I'm going to remove the margin too from it. So again, as we keep collectively going here, now you can see what's happening. All right. It's not perfect, but the other reason it's not perfect is right now I'm showing this at 300%. If I knock it back down again to 100%, that's the way it looks. It isn't perfect. I'm not saying it is. All right. But it's getting there, for lack of better words. All right. So we've got that done. Now let's work with our navigation. And we're going to tell it to float right. And we'll give it some margin top. All right. And there's only one more thing that we want to do in here. So I'm going to do that and then we'll take a look at it. So for the header highlight, there was a class of highlight. Oh, that's right. And for current, all right, for both of those, we wanted that color to be kind of that yellowish. There it is. And we'll make it bold. All right, so let's save that and take a look. All right, so there's what we have now. This is the only thing that's been done. All right, but you'll notice we're on the About page and that's yellow. We're on the home page, so that's yellow. We're on the contacts page, so that's yellow. All right, so all of that stuff is now done. Okay, so the next thing we can do is we can go down to our showcase. And remember that since our showcase only shows on the home page, that's only going to be this. All right, but it's going to change a lot in just a moment. So we finished our header, and now we're going down to our showcase. I'm saying that at a minimum, it should be 400 pixels high. All right, why? Because we're going to put a background image in there now. And that's URL, and then you've got to give it a path. All right, so now I'm in the CSS folder. I can't just say images. It doesn't recognize it. But if I go / images, it recognizes it. And there's a showcase image right there. All right. And I also want to tell it, I can put this on another line, it won't hurt anything, not to repeat. All right. And I'm going to say 0 minus 25 rem. All I'm trying to do there is space it. All right. Kind of space it out. I want the text that is in there to be center aligned. And I want it to be white. All right. So what did that do? All right. There we've got it. Now you can play with that. There's a lot of things that can be done in here. We're going to play with it a little bit more, but we have now at least got in here our picture and our text with our picture. I'm still going to do some stuff in here. That's an H1. We're going to change that around a little bit. We'll change the paragraph stuff around a little bit. That's okay. But I just wanted to show you that it is, again, coming together. We're starting to come together. All right. Both our showcase and we did something called main col. Both of those paragraphs, we want the font size to be set to the same size. All right. And we want our, did I put in the H1 here? No, I did not. So for the H1, that isn't for the showcase, we want to give it a margin top. A font size. And a margin bottom. All right. We just did our P, and there's one more thing that I want to do in here. The main col H1, I want to give it a little bigger font size. All right. So what is that? What has that done? All right. I'm surprised. I thought it was going to look a little different than that, but that's okay. All right. I'll look at it later, and if I have to adjust it, I'll adjust it. But we now have that done, and we have that done. All right. Let's do the newsletter next. And we'll do that because it's fairly short, then we'll take another break. All right. So the next thing, remember, we got a newsletter here. We've got a newsletter here, and we've got a newsletter here. Was it necessary to put the newsletter on each page? Of course not. All right. But it's just the way that I did it. All right. So let's do the newsletter. And like I said, then we'll take a break. This shouldn't take very long. All right. So the newsletter background will be this darker blue, and the coloring will be white, and we put in some padding there. All right, where it says subscribe to our newsletter, we'll want that to be floated to the left. All right, where we've got the form, we want that to be floated to the right. And we'll give it some margin top so it doesn't look so squeezed. All right, finally, the last thing that we want to do is we're asking them to enter their email in the newsletter. So we say here input, input type equal email, like that. So we're just saying that, and I better spell it right. Okay, and we'll give it some padding. We'll give it a height, and we'll give it a width. All right, and again, I'm going to do a save all, and let's take a look and see what that looks like now. So it should look like this now on all 3 pages. There it is. And there it is. Now I'm looking here, and this actually should be moved down a little bit. So I should put, I don't know if I put a margin top in there for this, but if I didn't for the form itself, probably should have. I've got margin top 1 rem. So I'm going to come back and change that and try to make it 1.75 rem and see if that pulls that down a little bit. Now I'm going to go to 2 rem, and I think then they'll pretty much line up. Again, a lot of it is just eyeballing. That might be too much, but we'll see in just a second. Now I think they pretty much line up here. All right, so there it is on our contacts page. There it is on our about page. There it is on our home page. All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to do these boxes in here because this just looks terrible. All right, and then we'll do the sidebars. So I've got right now 10:17. Let's please take, I'll tell you what, 13 minutes. We'll start up again at 10:30. All right, it is 10:30, so I'm going to continue on. The next thing I want to do is to fix this. And you may or may not remember, but we put this inside of an ID named boxes, and each individual thing in there we called a box. So I'm going to go back into here, and we're done with our newsletter now. First thing I want to do is put some margin top in there. I want to give, right now it's being pushed right up against the form that we have in there, the newsletter form. So that'll do that. Okay. And there's not really a lot we have to do here, but just a couple things. So for the box, which we gave a class of box to, we're going to float them to the left. We're going to text align them to the center. We're going to set the width. So we want all three of them to go on the same line. Now we could say 33.33, but I allowed for a little bit of padding and margin. So I put in 31.5% and some padding, 0.625 rem. And then finally, for the images that are in those boxes, remember they're real, a couple of them are real huge. And I just said I want the width on there to be 5.625 rem. All right, so not really a lot of changes, but let's see what it looks like now on the home page. All right, that looks a little bit nicer. All right, it's brought everything down. Okay, and I'm looking here. It looks like it's pretty lined up. I screwed that up myself when I was playing with this, and I spelled blues wrong, but we can fix all that. And I'm going to remove that clutch play from here. I don't know why that's in there twice, but I'm going to remove that too. So let's just quickly do that. All right, and let's respell blues. It doesn't look too bad. All right, so that's done. Now, don't worry about the background or anything that's in there. All right, that's fine. We could adjust that if we wanted to. All right, but that's for this page. The only other thing we have to do here is our footer. But when we go to the other pages now, remember this is screwed up. That is our aside. And on the last page, same thing. So this should be moved over to here, and over here, these should be moved over to there. So that's our sidebars, and that's what we're going to do next. Now, I'm not done by a long shot, but I'm going to save it, and I want to take a look, and you can see it's already looking better. That is, and so is that. Now we got to do a little bit of moving and stuff, but that isn't that bad. This is looking much better than it did just a couple minutes ago. All right. And I don't know if I need this. Originally, I had more stuff in here and then I removed a bunch of stuff. So I don't know if this is still in there, but I'm going to put it in anyway. You may or may not remember with these sidebars, we had an H3 in there. So I'm going to style that. And for our unordered list, I noticed that it's still showing the circles or the disk. So we'll put a list style none in there. All right. And for our LIs, we'll do a little styling on them as well. Oh, that UL, I don't know what I did there, but I removed the list style none. So, all right, not done, but just about done with this. Okay. Now the actual writing in there was in a div, and that div had a class of to do. It should have been to eat because it was places to eat, but I didn't do that. So and then finally for that title. All right, let's take a look at it now. Still should be pushed over. I don't know why it's not. I'll have to look at that. But these both, this should be moved up, and this shouldn't be set up like it is. So I've got an error in my CSS someplace. I will fix it before I put it out there on the system. And it may get fixed right here. We'll see. There's a thing called main column in there. Let's see what that did. That looks better. As does that. All right. So the only thing to do now is the footer. Align center. I think that's everything for the footer. Let's take a quick look. It's still not showing my date and time, and I'll have to look and see why it's not, but there it is. All right, so I won't put it out there until I get that date and time showing. But let's see. So there's our home page. There's our about page. And there's our contact page. Now, the only thing to do yet is look at this. That doesn't look very good. So let's add a little bit of media query in here. And I kept it simple. So I said basically what I'm going to set is going to be between 0 and 768 pixels. So I did put them, like I said, there's a media query in here with quite a few things in it. I don't know, there's probably about 20 lines or so here. So oops. So for all of those things, I don't want there to float anymore. So I want to remove the float. I just did it all at once. I want the text align to be center. And I want the width to take up 100%. All right. Now you're going to notice a big change now. So when I come back to here and I shrink it down, all right, we're not done yet, but it's already looking, I think, quite a bit better. And like I said, we're not done. All right. Well, that's got to be pushed over. I didn't do that. So I'll have to look at centering that, and I don't like the way the image is showing now either. And again, I'll have to push that over. Wow, I think we should change the coloring on there. That should all be white, and it's not. So it's still a work in progress. That doesn't look very good. So I'll go back and take a look at that. All right. What I wanted to show you though today, in the space of about, if you add in our breaks, in about 2.5 hours, we went from nothing to having a complete website. Now, if you look, one thing you'll notice is we never implemented this. I know that. All right. But I want to show you something. This is your first pretest. All right. I'll email it out today already. That's fine. Now, I do this typically in just about all my classes. So next semester, if you have me for the AWD1000 C# programming class, we'll do it again in C#. But it's called a body mass index program. All right. So basically, you're going to ask someone for their height, and you're going to ask someone for their weight. And based on that, you'll use this formula that's right here that I just gave you, and you'll figure out their BMI, or their body mass index. If their body mass index is less than 18.5, they're underweight. If it's between 18.5 but less than 25, they're of optimal weight. If it's between 25 but less than 30, they're overweight. And if their BMI is greater than or equal to 30, they're considered to be obese. When we put this in, we'll have these constants. All right. And that should have just said pound, but that's okay. So we're expecting that a person, their minimum weight can be 1 pound, their maximum weight can be 777 pounds. We're expecting the minimum height of a person would be 1 foot or 12 inches, and the maximum height would be 96 inches or 8 feet. All right. As it says at the end of each time we figure this out, we say, do you want to run the program again? All right. Next, for the height and the weight, we don't want to allow blank input or non-numeric input, or a height that's less than 12 or greater than 96, or a weight that's less than 1 or greater than 777. When you do the formula to figure out the BMI, show it to 2 decimal places. Plus, keep track of how many people are underweight, how many people are of optimal weight, how many people are overweight, and how many people are obese. And then when you're all done, print out those counters. All right. Now, it sounds like a lot. You're like, well, geez, I'd never be able to do this. But I'm going to ask, after I send this to you, that you try. Now, you may not understand any of the logic, but you should understand how to create the variables. All right. So what? You'll have a let for height. Let height equals 0, let weight equals 0. All right. If you looked at the examples that we went over yesterday, you should know how you can go in and use a prompt and get that information. You should even know how to be able to get that prompt. And if something is wrong, put it in a do while like Muroc did it, or in a while like I did it, and ask them to do it again. All right. If you don't know how to do this, this is literally, if you made a variable called BMI, that's literally. So if you have a variable called weight, where the person inputs their weight, one called height, where the person inputs their height, and one called BMI, this is going to figure out the BMI for you. Now, you may get an odd number like 26.83172 or something like that. But remember from yesterday, if you use the 2 fixed, TOFIXD, FIXED, with all lowercase except the F in fixed is uppercase, and you put in parentheses 2, it'll put it out to 2 decimal places. Now, we haven't talked yet about things like counters, all right, to find out how many people are underweight, optimal weight, overweight, or obese. It's not hard, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, I said this to you before. This is much, much harder than your first test. All right. This is the second one. Should look familiar because it's the same guessing game that I just talked about having you put into your, your St. Louis program that we just did. I'm not going to read it to you because it's pretty much the same thing. All right. So I'm going to send that out to you. And I'm even going to add another one onto this. All right. And it's going to be working with arrays. There is an array example on your test. It's not hard. If you look at the examples that I showed you yesterday, where we went in and we read in 5 student scores, and we did them both without an array and then with an array, if you look at that, you should be able to do fine on the test. But I'm going to put one on this test that's a little bit harder. All right. And I will send this test out today. All right. I am going to make, because I said we were going to do this originally, tomorrow and Friday will both be lab days. Because again, I want you to get all HTML, CSS, Flexbox, and Bootstrap work in by Sunday. So I'm dedicating to you almost 8 hours for you to do that. All right, plus really just about an hour today. All right. So again, going back to what was sent, what we went over earlier this morning, well, now I moved it. All right, I had no idea how long this would take this morning. That's why I said, and tomorrow if necessary. Well, it's not. All right, so if you are caught up, and maybe none of you are, but if you are caught up, then I will send you, like I said, I'll send everybody out. I'll send everybody out the pretest, and you can have a look at it. Now, on Monday, we will go over all of it. The other thing we will do on Monday is we will go over the Flexbox test. All right, I think I've got mine here. I don't know. Let me look. I'm not going to go over it now because, believe it or not, there's still a couple people who didn't turn it in. So Flexbox hot. I don't know if that's it or not. Yeah. All right. And I use PetSmart. Don't ask me why, but I did. So that's how mine looks. And when you squish it all down, I didn't do anything with that, but you can see how it comes out. And as you move it over, now it's 2 columns wide. That's still 1 column wide. All right, once it reaches a certain point, it goes back to what we asked for. So we'll look at that on Monday also. So for those few of you who have not turned in a Flexbox test, you're going to lose points. All right, because you haven't turned it in yet, and that was probably 2 weeks ago. All right, but you can get some points, and even if you get a 50, let's say 50 is much better than 0. All right, so on Monday then of next week, all right, I will go over this. At the beginning of class, I'll go over the instructions for this. In fact, I just did. We really don't even need to. And then starting at 10 a.m., I will do those 3 problems for you myself. Then on Tuesday of next week, as it says, you'll take your first hands-on test. All right. There are 4, 5, 6, I don't remember, problems. Literally, one of the problems in there is about 1 or 2 lines of code. That's it. and it's worth like 20 points or something like that. So a lot of it is very short. As it says, I'll email you the test by 7 on Tuesday. We'll go over it from 8:05 to 8:20. You will have the rest of the period, and it will be due that night. Finally, again, as you've already seen, I will not accept any, that should have said any, HTML, CSS, Lexbox, or Bootstrap work after midnight Sunday. I'm just not going to. All right. First hands-on test again. I've got Monday. No, that's Tuesday. I'll fix that. All right. And your JavaScript chapters 1 through 3 homework are due Wednesday, a week from today. All right. That really, basically, that's all I had for today. Again, if you have questions, I had one student who already emailed me saying, hey, I don't think I have that JavaScript homework. If that happens to you, send me an email and let me know what you don't have. All right, I'll be glad to send it out to you as soon as I possibly can. All right, so with that said, have a good rest of the day. Again, you've got 1 hour just about today, 3 hours and 50 minutes tomorrow, 3 hours and 50 minutes on Friday. And I'm hoping that's going to be enough time for people to catch up. All right. So I will not talk to you tomorrow morning. I will not talk to you Friday morning. Both days are lab. You might get a simple email from me, but you might not get anything. All right. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. And I will talk to you on Monday morning.